Hi.
Hi.
So nice to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Would love for you to introduce yourself to all of us and all the dancers out there who are watching.
Yeah, totally. So my name's Sarah. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born and raised there my whole life. I started ballet, like seriously, because I did some comp dancing when I was younger, and then I really started to focus on ballet. I started at the Rock School for Dance Education when I was
Mhm.
5. And then I was there for about 10 years until the School of Pennsylvania Ballet had just reopened. And I had been doing some additional core work. Like I was an extra for a lot of like Nutcracker. I was doing Stone Flowers with them from when I was like 14. So I think I was 15 when the school reopened, and I joined their school, and then I was in their school for 2 years. And then I finally got my PB2 contract. I was in the
Mm.
second company. Um, and then I do want to share this part because I think it is relevant to how I got to where I am, but also like what we're going to talk about with like life balance and body image. But
Yeah.
there was just at that time like a director change. So I was hired by a previous director, and then the new director didn't like my body. So
Mm.
I was in this weird limbo where I was getting, taken. I was finally in the company, but then I was getting taken out of roles that I had danced before or not being cast at all, and no one was saying anything to me. So finally I just was like, hey, what's going on? And they were like, yeah, we just don't really feel comfortable putting you on stage with how you look. And I was like, oh wow. So, and this was something, it's not the first time I had dealt with that. I had that in my training when I was like 12, 13 years old, which is so
Mhm.
young and ridiculous. But I just knew I didn't want to deal with that again.
Yeah.
And so of course, Nutcracker rolled around and you're just like dying and trying to survive. And they were like, oh, you look great now. We'll give you an apprenticeship. And I
Mm.
was like, I kind of had to make that decision of, that was the company that I thought I'd spend my entire career in. And like my family's there. I never thought I'd leave my family or my friends or that support system. So I kind of had to make that big decision, like, do I stay and walk on eggshells here, or do I find an environment where I thrive? And I was very lucky that I had just done a summer course at PMB,
Mhm.
and I felt very valued and respected for what I was, and so I took the jump and I reached out to Peter Bowl, and again, so much of it is just luck and timing. Like I was fresh on the mind, and they
Yeah.
were actually coming to New York on tour. So I was like, can I just take class while you guys are here? And he was like, yeah, of course. And I
Mm.
did, 2 days of classes, and immediately he took me like
Wow.
backstage at New York City Center, and he was like, yeah, I want to give you an apprenticeship. And I was like,
Mm.
it just felt right, for
Yeah.
someone to be so willing to give something right away. It's pretty rare. And so I was like, I think I have to do this. But it was really hard. It was hard to make that compromise.
Yeah, wow. So there's a lot that I want to unpack here for a
Yeah.
bit, because a lot of really incredible points that have been made. So the first thing that I just need to point out is that I cannot express enough, um, oh God, what's the word that I'm looking for? Appreciation, maybe is the right word, for your ability to navigate these instances at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been experiencing body related comments, uh, negative comments, it sounds like, that you were experiencing from starting, did you say the age was 12? Is that what you said?
I mean, it was earlier even, but I
It
think
was earlier. Yeah.
it was really forefront. Like they were very open about it with
Mm,
me, I think, right about
mm.
12, 13. Um, which,
Now, now having that framework, right? Not the
Mhm.
framework is not the best word. It's 8:30, so I'm definitely struggling to
No,
identify the words I'm looking for. But having that baseline almost is the word that I want to say, and being able to now move through your adolescent years, which are tough years to begin with because our bodies are constantly changing. Were you during those years, like those early years, identifying that this environment was not supporting you, or was it more of that more common response, which is like, they're telling me something's wrong. They must be right because they're the ones in power. I need to change myself. So like,
Yeah.
what was, because in your summary that you gave, it sounds like at some point, and I want to hear when that turning point was, you were able to
Mhm.
identify the fact that, like, no, they weren't seeing you for what you had to offer. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, that was their problem, not your problem. But at what point did that switch, or did that light bulb go off for you?
Mm, honestly, I would say not until like a few years ago. I think
Mm,
because the entire time too, I think I went through puberty a lot earlier than my
yeah,
peers.
yeah.
So I think that was part of it where I thought, why is my body developing in a certain way right now? Like there must be something wrong with me.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, I would say I didn't really unpack a lot of it until a few years ago, where I just thought, maybe I wasn't meant to. I was constantly being told, like, good luck having a career with those thighs, like things
oh my
that were
gosh.
um,
Yeah,
just weird for
yeah,
such a young age, you know?
yeah, yeah. And Sarah, I cannot tell you the amount of messages that I get from dancers who actually, I just answered one right before our live chat, who very sincere messages from dancers who are like, just to give you an idea, and Rachel, I understand what you're saying. Like today's reel that I posted was about bread, right?
Yeah.
Just trying to dismantle the fears around bread. And I got a message from a dancer that's like, I get what you're trying to say, but to be honest, like that's not the realities of the dance world. Do you have proof of dancers who have been able to build successful careers while still working towards dismantling what I call dancer diet culture? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, actually, yes, I do. I unfortunately can't give names because of HIPAA compliance as a dietitian, but I do want you to talk a little bit about this because I feel that you are evidence of a dancer who has experienced a challenging relationship with your body and maybe even with food, and unfortunately have had so much of that come from, if not all, come from the environments that were that you moved through as a young dancer. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, I did really struggle with trying to figure out what it was that I needed to do for my body. And I think I'm still figuring it out, really. I think people
Yeah.
gave a lot of um, advice that was meant to be helpful, but it really wasn't. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I had to figure it out for myself, basically. And I think that I've found that it's what you post about all the time. Like the better I feel my body, the better I'm
Mm-hmm.
dancing. Like I feel so strong when I'm
Yeah.
feeling myself in a way that, like, yeah, I think I also at some point in time tried to cut bread and I was tired and like I couldn't
Yeah.
pick up choreography. And
Yeah.
I think but you really have to figure out what it is for yourself. Cause I think I tried to follow a lot of dancers put out there. Like I have, I think before one of my shows, I was like, I'm going to follow the Isabella Boylston. She has pasta, banana 30 minutes before. And I had this terrible stomach ache for
Mm.
my entire performance. And it's like, I had to figure out what it was going to be for me that made me feel best. So it is such a personal journey. And yeah, I think yeah, there's this idea of how we're supposed to look in this field, but I've been very lucky to be in an environment that has been very accepting of my,
Mm-hmm.
body. And I think some of that is just finding a place where you're accepted and appreciated. And I think there's a place out there for everyone.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm very fortunate that I got that for myself.
Yeah. And it's also a testament to the realities of dancers needing to again go back to that identification and acknowledgement of when an environment is not actually being supportive, and being able to see the perspective of hey, the issue is actually them, it's
Mm-hmm.
not me, it's not my body. If I turn to these um, extreme methods of trying to, just as an example, lose weight, or even as an example, to drastically shift body composition, which is
Sure.
another big common goal that dancers will have, turning to those very regimented and extremely and patterns of eating will only land you further and further away from your performance goals. I think that's the biggest piece of evidence for a lot of dancers to help them build more trust in the fact that, you know, it's not worth sacrificing performance potential, and rather what needs to happen is finding and taking that jump, which can be very scary and feel very inaccessible to some dancers, taking that jump to finding a new environment.
Yeah, no, it's terrifying, but
yeah,
you know, you just don't know what's out there and until you really try. And I think it's trusting that and not sacrificing, like you're saying, your own performance. It's just so not worth it. There were so many weird things that people were telling me to do, and it all came from a good place. I think even, you know, I speak of this director and that experience, like there's no hard feelings or, you know, we left on good terms. It just, I realized that wasn't where I was going to grow anymore.
So that brings up a really incredible point. And so often, if not more often than not, a lot of commentary, because I'm often posting about how do we navigate through commentary? Like right now, the focus is on holiday meals, and how do we move through hearing diet talk that could be triggering, or, you know, Aunt Karen sharing some comment about your body that may have changed from last year. Not always, but more often than not, sometimes the intent behind these suggestions or comments, especially when it comes to food, the intent is not meant to be hurtful. I often see this with a lot of like clean eating rhetoric. The intent often to be, I want to choose foods that are nutrient dense. I want to, like, you know, do the best for my performance. The problem is that when patterns like, for example, clean eating get taken out of context or get taken to the extreme, it results in dancers becoming obsessive, becoming fixated. So I think you bring up a really good point with sometimes acknowledging, one of the first steps to navigating through some of this commentary is acknowledging whatever the intent was behind it. We still need to lean into resources and tools that are going to help us navigate through them more smoothly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, the clean eating, I remember one of the dancers was like, oh, maybe you should try, I think it was like paleo, something that eliminates beans. And I was like, I grew up in a Mexican household. There's no, beans are a staple. Like, I think there are just so many things that weren't going to work for the environment that I was in. And like, I was still living at home during this time. And yeah, it's funny what people think, and maybe it works for them, right? But I think it was very important to find what works for me, especially I'm figuring out right now too, because I get like stage nerves, like the anxiety and stuff. And I think I have a hard time sometimes like fueling before shows because I have that like nervous butterfly stomach. And then so like on top of that, I have the added stress of like, I'm not going to have enough energy to get through the performance. So I think navigating that too has been really interesting. Like I've come up with a shake that I know I can, you know, drink and trick myself into like having that fuel. I've also developed like an emotional dependency on Gatorade, I think, because I know this is going to get me carb loaded and ready to go for this show. So finding what works for yourself is really, really important.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest this when you said the pre-performance nerves. I was going to suggest maybe something like a shake, because usually drinking before a show is a little bit more manageable than having like a full-blown meal.
Totally.
So, you know, fast forward now, you've reached such a incredible point of your career, right? And we love watching and just continuing to see you navigate the successes of your career. I would love to hear a little bit about how you are maintaining now, balancing your life, and even instances where self-doubt may still come up for you, because I think a lot of my pre-professional dancers don't realize that even for my professional dancers, like the self-doubt does come in. Yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about this.
Totally. I think I think it was just last year, actually, the one role that scared me the most, I did the principal in Allegro Brilliant, and I don't know what it was, terrified. Like every rehearsal, I couldn't get my nerves down. But we have at PMB a really incredible therapist on board, Josh Bell.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Love,
he's
yeah.
amazing.
Oh my gosh, love Josh Bell. We've collaborated many times in the past,
Yeah.
actually. He's wonderful, wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he just gave me like the most incredible tools that, you know, I do a lot of meditation before shows. I love my lavender oil. I take a lot of like herbs that, you know, natural things that I found for myself. I also, I have a doctor that swears by just taking walks in nature just to like de-stress. And I am very lucky. I have 2 dogs, so I have to do that quite often. And I'm also in the Pacific Northwest, so, you know, our city is green. So it always feels like I'm getting out into like trees and taking a break. So the dogs definitely help my life balance.
Awesome. That is the opposite of where I am in New York. It is not very green. But I do love hearing that. I love hearing that you are very leaning into external tools to help you navigate through those experiences of discomfort, like anxiety and nerves, because, you know, sometimes thinking that we can totally eliminate these feelings by achieving some degree or whatever degree of career success a dancer, you know, aims for. I find that to be a very unrealistic goal, and rather, you know, having or building that toolbox that you said, you know, Josh has really played a critical role in helping you to build that, which is great. I'm always encouraging that dancers, you know, seek support from licensed mental health therapists to do exactly that. And I love, so PMB has always, for many years, actually done such a fabulous job at caring for their dancers, even from the nutrition perspective.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I think that's really paving the way for a lot of dance schools and dance companies.
Yeah, and just taking advantage of those resources, I think, has been such a savior in my career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Sarah, I would love to, so the question that I ask for all the dancers who come on the series, it's a large question, but I think that you can provide us with really wonderful insight about it. How would you redefine what it means to be the healthy dancer? And I use the word redefine very specifically because, unfortunately, the word healthy in of itself in today's day and age, especially for dancers, is very skewed, right? It's where we see a lot of regimented thinking, a lot of perfectionist type of goals, a lot of ideals when it comes to bodies. And that's really not what it's about. So I want to hear from you how you've learned to redefine this term throughout your career.
Yeah, that's tough. I feel like healthy for me is just, you know, feeling at the top of my game. Like I want to go in to work every day and feel good about what I'm doing. And sometimes, you know, you have a bad day, which is, I have a lot of those. You know, I'm not always on the way that I want to be, but I think knowing that also like progress is like this, and knowing that I'm going in every day and giving the best that I can. And even when I'm not, like there are days that I'm tired and I'm still going in and I'm trying. And I think just finding the ways that I feel happy with how I'm contributing to my work environment. And, you know, especially as a principal now, I feel like I'm an example to my peers and how I want to present myself. So I think, yeah, healthy to me is just trying my best every day, really. And knowing that it's not always going to be 100% and being happy with that.
I love that. I love that because, first of all, the idea that life and every day for all of us ebbs and flows is so important. Sorry, I just need a really quick drink. Because for dancers especially, or anyone with like a more type A type of mindset, I feel like it can be very easy for us to fixate on the 100% or even like the 200% with how we're moving through our day to day. and making space for times where it's okay to not be at 100%. I sometimes say, you know, it's okay to be lazy. Sometimes we need that reminder. I love hearing that you're still able to get into the studio even when you're having not such a great day. But at the same time, having an expectation for yourself on those days and being okay with maybe it not necessarily looking as great as another day has looked for you.
Yeah. And I'm still learning, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I go in every day and I have to remind myself to be compassionate with
Yeah.
myself. And I think, again, like, I'm in a great work environment where I think we all kind of remind each other sometimes. You know, you see someone being really down on themselves and you're like, it's Wednesday. Like, you just ran a whole thing yesterday, you know? So I don't know. I think just trying your best is kind of how I've been doing it.
Yeah, I love that. And then just a really fun, quick question. We heard about your pre-performance go-to, which was more of like a smoothie. What about your post-performance refuel? Anything that's like really hitting home for you these days?
The other night, after Nut Paw, the only thing I wanted was a burger.
Oh, yum. I love that.
It hit just right. Yeah.
I love that. It's delicious and it's also getting all that balance that you need for recovery.
Totally.
Fabulous. Sarah, thank you so much. This was wonderful, such an
Thank
insightful
you.
conversation, and I really appreciate you being so open about your journey, specifically with body image, because just as I mentioned earlier, it's so helpful for dancers to hear professional dancers who are at the height of their careers who have still experienced these same struggles that some of my pre-professional students are experiencing.
Oh, yeah. It never really goes away. You just learn, navigate it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sarah, thank you so much. We'll be in touch, okay?
Yeah, totally. Thank you so
Have a
much.
good evening.
See ya.